All right, hello guys. Well, hold on. Let me change this because we are not on this. Let me just hit a hide on that. And then let's just hold on. Hold on. Let me get this situated. Sorry guys, if I'm like doing this on the fly. I was having a lot of struggles with trying to get the stream to go to my actual second channel. And also I was having my computer crash a lot. So it's been a interesting time trying to stream, but here's what I will say. We're going to talk about some Rings of Power. Also, my webcam's about to get a little funky, so just be prepared for that. I'm assuming. Yep, there it goes. All right, so let me just fix this. Let me fix this for a second. But as we're coming into the stream, let me know what you guys think about season 2. I don't know why my webcam is like freaking out right now, but it's freaking out. Um. Hmm. I don't know why my webcam. All right, you know what? Fuck it. Hold on. Let's just go back to this and then just make it big. That's what we're just gonna do for the stream. My stream is not cooperating as much as I would like it to be cooperating, and that's just where we're at right now. All right, that's best I can do for now. It's just things are not it's not working for me right now. Things are just not working great. But here we are. So we are live. We're talking about a little bit about Rings of Power Season 2. And the first thing I kind of want to say so far is I think Rings of Power Season 2 is not great. And I don't think that's a shock to anyone, but I don't think it's as bad as like Season 1 was. Like, I think Season 1, like, I wasn't really enjoying anything about Season 1. Like, for the most part, there was nothing that I found like interesting about Season 1. Season 2 is a really weird season to me because in a lot of ways it still has the same issues, right? Writing issues are still a big problem. And so if you look at where this season starts out at, the main premise of the first 3 episodes is really getting Sauron to be with Celebrimbor and Eregion. But how do you do that without Celebrimbor already knowing Halbrand is Sauron, right? Because that kind of creates an issue right away. So the way they go about doing that is they go, okay, well, Galadriel didn't tell really anybody about who Halbrand actually was. That right there is a really weird premise. I don't know why Galadriel would do that. Maybe outside of just the fact that she's embarrassed that she was being, manipulated by Sauron and she feels like a fool. But at the same time, she realizes this is Sauron, her like greatest enemy, the person she was trying to like hunt down and defeat the whole first season. It doesn't make a lot of sense that she wouldn't really tell everybody who Sauron is. And so eventually Galadriel is forced to, give up that, yes, Halbrand was Sauron, basically because Elrond puts her in that position. And then Gil-galad, has some messengers go to tell Celebrimbor that Sauron is Sauron, or Halbrand is Sauron. Well, those guys, then, those messengers that get sent there, apparently they die at some point on that journey, which it is a decent, like, journey from where they are to where Eregion is. So I guess it is, like, feasible that those messengers could have been killed. But the fact that the whole country doesn't already know this news, the fact that this news isn't being spread out to people doesn't make any sense. And even the fact that these messengers were somehow killed conveniently, and it seems like it was done at Sauron's order, is just incredibly weird because Sauron has no influence over anything in the West right now. He doesn't even have influence over Mordor either. And if you even think about where Sauron starts in the first 3 episodes, is Sauron starts by going all the way back to Mordor, becoming a prisoner of Adar, and then he gets released because he basically has a plan with Adar to take out Eregion or find out where Sauron is, because he also, Adar, does not know that Halbrand is Sauron, which makes sense. But then the fact that these messengers don't get to Celebrimbor, no like backup messages are sent to Celebrimbor about Sauron's identity. By the time Sauron's able to get out of captivity of Mordor and then already go straight to Eregion is really weird. It's really, really weird. And it makes no sense. So there's things like that all throughout the first 3 episodes that are there, right? Those are things that, and all 3 episodes are a thing. Also, hi, Ashley. How are you? This stream is a little scuffed because I was having a lot of issues with getting this stream to actually go live and stuff, so we're just here. But Ashley, if you've watched Rings of Power, let me know what your thoughts are on it. I don't know if I can, from this menu, can I? Yes, I can. Cool. Ashley, I made you a mod because I don't think I actually have any mods on this channel, so you're going to be my first mod, I think, on this channel. I don't know if that's actually the case. Hold on. Do I have any mods on here? I don't know. Well, regardless. Ashley, I'll be honest. I don't think so. Like, it's pretty mediocre. Like, I'm a little bit more positive of it than season 1. Like, season 1, I thought was terrible. Like, season 1 was just, there was nothing redeeming about the show. It was filled with illogical sequences that made no sense. It felt like plots that didn't really intertwine. And so season 2 is a little better because there's some better character work for certain characters. Like, they actually go out of their way to try and make these characters understandable or have some sort of conflicting character motivations and things like that that actually make them pretty interesting. Like, for instance, Isildur has this arc where we learn kind of about his mother and what occurred to his mother, that his mother died because she was trying to basically save him from drowning, and that caused her to drown. And so he has this weight that he carries about, you know, what did his mother die for, right? Like, what was that for, in trying to prove himself? And so that actually goes to explain some of his actions in season 1. And so there's things like that in season 2, which are really good. And then not only that, right? Not only is it to fix Isildur's character, it actually goes to fix, or not fix, but also build other characters that have similar feelings. And so with just one conversation that does a lot for Isildur's character, it actually does a lot for some other characters as well. Those are some of the good moments of season 2 so far, the first 3 episodes. But then there's just so many issues with the writing. Like, things that, like, for instance, Ashley, that we talked about with House of the Dragon, where it's like, oh, this decision doesn't make sense based upon this other stuff. There's a lot of that in Rings of Power. There's more of that in Rings of Power than there is in House of the Dragon. Like, for instance, Sauron. Sauron is, as an entity, regardless of the source material, I guess I'm kind of bringing the source material in, but Sauron is the greatest evil. Like, there is no nuance to Sauron. He's the Dark Lord. It's literally in his name, right? Like, there is no reason that this character should have any type of, like, gray in him. And I know you can say, oh, well, he doesn't truly have gray in him because he still does those evil actions in episode 1, even after it seems like he has some indecision. But my question with that is, like, why did we waste time doing those things, right? When it doesn't, like, I get that you're trying to connect it and fix season 1 because there's a lot of issues with why is Sauron on this random boat in the middle of nowhere, and then he ended up, you know, meeting Galadriel on this happenstance and all this stuff. But it's like, this is just not the fundamental character of Sauron. Like, Sauron is a character, a being that at this time is one of the most powerful entities, even without the ring, in Middle-earth. And so watching him go through some things that don't really make a lot of sense, like, for instance, like I talked about earlier on the stream, there's a plot line where Sauron is basically a prisoner who's being abused and beaten up by these orcs and Adar and all this faction, right? And there's also this thing that Sauron got betrayed by Adar and all this stuff, which makes sense to understand why the two don't like each other. But again, I still have problems because Sauron is this entity that is just larger than life. And he's also the second-hand choice by basically Melkor. There's no real reasoning in the show as to why the orcs don't like Sauron. That's never made clear. You're just supposed to accept that. We're also supposed to accept that the orcs are, like, basically like people too, which is a really weird message to me, given that the orcs, just like Sauron himself, are supposed to be evil. And, like, you can have nuance and have those those orc tribes be different from each and having their own little conflicts between each other, but they're still at the core evil, right? Like, for instance, Return of the King, you see the orcs having their issues over, Frodo's loot, this mithril shirt. Or you see in like the Two Towers, specifically more in the book, how there's different factions of orcs and Uruk-hai and how they interact with each other and might not always get along. Or, loyalties to Saruman and Sauron. Those things make sense because it's still, they're evil, they're villain characters, but they're not the same as another tribe. They have different, loyalties and all that stuff. But at the core, they're still evil. And so they're trying to do this thing where the orcs like have their own kids and their wife or whatever that they're looking after and they care about. It's like, it just feels like they're trying to make the show Game of Thrones-esque, where everything is morally gray, when that's never what Lord of the Rings has been about. Like, that's not to say there isn't morally gray characters in Lord of the Rings. Like, there are some of the best characters, I think, of Lord of the Rings are like Boromir, and he's a very complex character. But for the evil faction, it's very weird. So, like, I don't know. Ashley, but here's the thing, right? In the same route of saying, like, Euron is bad in Game of Thrones, right? The thing is, Sauron in the show is by far, in my opinion, has the best actor playing him. So it's weird because it's entertaining to watch Sauron because of the actor's performance. But from me, knowing who Sauron is, it doesn't feel like Sauron. So it's so weird. And even some of the things that they do with the character of Sauron, I find quite interesting. Like his actual, like, reveal that he's Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, and his conversations with, like, Celebrimbor, and, like, some of the manipulation going on there is quite interesting, right? That's actually, like, I actually enjoy watching that. It's just a lot of the way we get to certain things, or the way that it's set up, is quite bad. And so there's so many moments throughout the show right now where I just have issues with the writing of how we got here. Like, for instance, Moria has this whole plot right now where it seems like because of Mount Doom, the Mines of Moria, they've lost their sunlight and they're not able to grow food within Moria, which is an interesting concept. But it's like, really? Like, that's what caused this whole thing to uproot Moria's culture? And the way that Moria is able to deal with these situations is by singing with the mountain. It's just very cringe, in my opinion. I don't know. It's like very, like, awkward to watch. But then there's other stuff in the same route of the Moria plot where I'm like, I really find this interesting. Like Durin and his father, right? That dynamic of how stubborn people can be and let their pride get in the way and how that breaks relationships. Like, that stuff is really interesting. So it's like, it just feels like that is like the main thing of Rings of Power right now, is like there's every single plotline has stuff I like, or I shouldn't say that because that's not the truth. Like the Harfoot plot or the Halfling plot, I don't like anything about it, but it just feels like every time I think there's something good about it, I have to follow that up with but. Like, it's good, but, and I would say the best plotline so far is the Numenor plot. It just feels very political, and I like political, like, just intrigue of people scheming to try and gain power. I just find that fun. And I really like what they've kind of done with, like, Pharazôn and some of the other characters in the Numenor plot specifically, because I feel like there's actually some character development going on. There's actually intrigue of writing going on. And so Numenor plot, of all the plots, I would say is probably the best one so far. But yeah, but not sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts, like, after you watch it. I'm gonna have, like, my video review, which is a bit more, I guess I'd say, explanatory. But yeah, I'm just kind of left with the sense right now of season 2 where I'd say it's like a 5 out of 10. Like, and that's actually a pretty big improvement. Like, again, 5 out of 10 is not a good rating, but compared to, like, season 1, where, like, season 1 was a 2 out of 10. Like, it was bad. I don't think it's as bad. Yes, Ashley, it's a lot like House of the Dragon, except at least in House of the Dragon, you have a lot more like big moments, right? Or you can tell like there's a level of better writing, right? So like for instance, like in House of the Dragon, you know, episode 1, you might have criticisms with what they did with Blood and Cheese, but then episode 2, they handle pretty well. And so, you know, there's some really good stuff there. And that's not really the case with Rings of Power. It's like there's either some bad stuff or there's just like some it's okay, or it's a, you know, leaning positive type stuff. That's kind of the issue. Whereas like Rings of Power doesn't have those big moments right now yet where it makes you almost like forget about the bad stuff. Like every time I see the Harfoots on screen, I just want to just like, why are they in this show? I don't know why they're in the show. They don't connect to any of the other plot lines going on right now. They have literally no connection to anything else going on. The main plots right now, the Elf plot, the Sauron plot, the Moria plot, and then the Numenor plot. The Harfoot plot is the plot that doesn't connect to any of those things, right? And one thing I like that they're doing is they're able to connect the Sauron plot with like kind of the Elf plot really well, and the Dwarf plot seems to also be connecting to the other plot. And so they're doing a good job, I think, of connecting their plots in a lot of ways, even though if I might have issues with it. But the actual Harfoot plot is literally just this. It's 2 Harfoots and Gandalf just wandering around, getting nothing done, having literally no real focus. Like the focus is, oh, we want to find Gandalf's memories and his home or whatever, which is just incredibly vague. There's not a lot of focus to it. Think about it like this, Ashley. This is the best way I can describe it. If you think about Frodo and Sam, right? They go on their adventures and they're wandering around a lot because they're trying to get to Mordor to throw the ring away. It would be like if you took away the end point of their journey, or maybe you said it like this. They had to throw away this ring, but they didn't know where to go. So it was just them wandering around a lot and not really getting any leads onto how to throw the ring away. Like that's the extent of it. And so then they're getting tracked by these like Easternling guys, it would appear, which they do look cool. I like their design, but then there also seems like they're being hired by some sort of wizard. I don't know if this is supposed to be Sauron. It looks like Sauron. And we do know in the lore that Sauron seems to have gone to the east at some point. Or is it the Witch King? Because we know the Witch King was kind of a sorcerer before he became a Nazgul. And so that's how they're going to introduce the Witch King. It's just like, it's like going back to the whole thing about season 1. Season 1's main thing was we're going to play a whodunit, right? Or we're going to have a who is this person? A mystery that just doesn't really go anywhere, right? That's what it feels like. And so there's just this really convoluted plot with the Harfoots where it's like every time it's on screen, I'm just like, I might as well just like look away until their scenes are done. And so like Ashley, the House of the Dragon equivalent would be like Alicent when she's like going on a camping trip. It's like nothing's really happening. Like you could miss all of those scenes and nothing, the story doesn't change. Like the story, like you missing a like Hobbit section of an episode doesn't mean anything for the rest of the story. It doesn't mean anything. If you edited down Rings of Power and you took out the entire Hobbit plotline up to now, the story is the exact same. Nothing changes. Not a single thing changes outside of the episodes would be shorter and there wouldn't be some random like hobbits just like walking around, you know, and like being cringy because they're supposed to be like the comic relief of the show, but they're not funny. They're most of the time they're just annoying, right? Because apparently there's this song that they remember that's what helps them get through this area, which is just like, okay, we're trying to be Tolkien because Tolkien liked to use a lot of songs and poems in his work, but it just comes out of fucking nowhere. Like, I don't know. Hi, Radical, how are you? If you've watched Rings of Power, what are your thoughts? I think I'm actually not as critical as most people are. I've seen a lot of people say Rings of Power Season 2 is just as bad as Season 1, and I don't agree. But I still don't think it's good. Okay, Radical, so you love them. I'd love to hear, like, what were the things you liked about it? Like, I talked about some of my positives. I thought the Numenor plot was handled pretty well. I thought the actual, like, acting of Sauron and some of the scenes we get with Sauron are pretty good. I just still don't love the way they're kind of showing Sauron as being a very weak individual that has to manipulate other people because he can't do it himself. Don't really love that. And I also don't like seeing Sauron ever get bossed around by somebody that's not named Melkor. That also is kind of like, okay, I don't know. I do think another positive, Galadriel. I think they definitely scaled down the character. Whereas in the first season, every single time we saw Galadriel, she was like yelling at people and she was being really annoying and she was by far the most unlikable character of season 1. But I think in season 2, they've done a lot better job of giving the character a little bit like more to do in terms of just screaming at people. I don't know, like she seems to actually have some sort of internal conflict about trust, right? How does she trust people, trust herself with Sauron? Like, I think a lot of that is very interesting to what the character they've built upon. I still think there's some issues that mainly stem from season 1 with how they tried to fix the character. But I do like that plot line better, I guess. But I don't like the rings being made out of order. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense, right, Radical? Because like I talked about at the beginning of the stream before you popped in, the issue then becomes, Radical, how does Celebrimbor make the rings with Sauron, right? So the way they've done it is they've said, okay, well, the messengers that were sent to Celebrimbor don't make it so that Celebrimbor doesn't know that Halbrand is Sauron. Okay? It's a weird execution because they know they have to do that. If they had just done it a different way, right? If they had done it as this Halbrand character is helping Celebrimbor, and then right before they make the Elven rings, that's when they figure out who he is, you don't have the same issue, right? So then going into season 2, you could have still had the Anatar plot, but have him be in Numenor. I think like they've kind of struggled with some of the stuff they've written into a corner because of season 1, in my opinion. I think I like the Hardfoot plot this season over their season 1 plot. I guess I would agree, but I don't know like if that's a positive that much for me. Like the Hardfoot plot, I didn't really like in season 1 at all. It was by far the worst thing in that show or in that season. And that still is continued in season 2. It's just not as much screen time, I think, is probably what I would say. But I have a confession, Grease. This stream is helping me procrastinate. I just started to write a script for a video finally, but here I am. Well, Ashley, well, what was the script you were doing? Are you doing a video on your channel? Because if you are, I'm very excited. I want to see what the video is. Also, Anatar saying Celebrimbor will be made a Lord of the Rings was a bit on the nose because, spoiler alert, he doesn't become a Lord of the... Yeah. It's a lot of... It's a little on the nose. There's a lot of stuff like that, Radical. Like, it's so weird because it feels like Rings of Power is trying to separate itself from Lord of the Rings or the Peter Jackson films. But then yet, at the same time, even in season 1, they did a bunch of references to Peter Jackson's film, which I just find very weird. I don't really want to write this one because the video will be dedicated to Dakota. Oh my god. What is it though? Is it like a Frey video or something? Because that'd be interesting. That would be very interesting. Was the spider who captured Isildur Shelob? Yes, I have to assume that it was. That's another thing, right? Like, this is the weirdest part. Like, this is what's so, I think, confusing about the actual Rings of Power. Is like, the season 1, Isildur is basically in the middle of the volcanic, like, eruption, more or less. He should have a ton of smoke inhalation. He is basically has a building somewhat collapse on him. So the fact that Isildur doesn't die from that already is quite questionable. But then the fact, when you really think about it, is Isildur has to be, by the time that his horse finds him, which also is kind of weird. They also then copied, like, the Two Towers Peter Jackson thing with Aragorn's horse, kind of. Again, quite weird. Isildur had to have survived for, like, literally days, because Elendil would have had to lead his forces away from where they were. They were packing up already to then leave on the boats, which would have taken a pretty good amount of time. The horse then would have to travel all the way back, finding where he was. He had to have survived for days without any food or water. And also, based upon the way that Isildur gets captured, you also have to assume that Isildur got hit with Shelob's stinger. So let's think about everything Isildur has endured in the last, let's be generous and say 3 days. Okay? 1, he hasn't had food. He has smoke inhalation, should have severe burns, likely be close to dead. He should be almost like an Anakin situation in Revenge of the Sith. 2, he then somehow, let's just say he escapes the turmoil he was in. He wanders around a little bit, gets got by Shelob. Shelob hits him with the stinger, so he's also been poisoned. He still doesn't have any food or water. He's tied up in a spider web that he can't get out until he's found by his horse. Him with his horse, they then leave going on some sort of road, and they find a woman who, once again, still don't have food. He still doesn't have food at this point. I'm assuming the food he does actually find is with the lady, I'm assuming. But, like, think about how much just happened there, and Isildur is fine. And he gets stabbed in the leg. Let's also not forget that either. He also gets stabbed in the leg. How is he alive, and how is he not on the brink of death? Weird. Yeah, Radical, that's kind of what I believe as well. It's about Big Walder's role in the Grand Northern Conspiracy. Well, Ashley, let me know when you release it. So, you know, I might do a little reaction to the video on stream. I think it'd be cool. I like the addition to the lore that Muriel is blind. Yeah, I like that too. I think that actually, like, that's what I think. Like, Numenor, I think in this first 3 episodes is actually pretty good. I really like the politics and stuff that's going on there. I like the reaction that people of Numenor would have, right? We just got basically beat up by Mordor or Adar, this faction of orcs. We had a bunch of people die for no reason, right? We didn't gain anything out of it. It just seems like warmongering. If you're on the outside looking in, you're going, okay, we just did this whole battle and war, lost, family members, all these things for what? We didn't gain anything. Like, there was literally no reason to do that conquest at all. So I like the way that that's being used. It feels real, how those people would definitely, like, feel. Instead of just in season 1 where it's like, the elves are taking our jobs. It's like, okay, whatever. Maybe it isn't Shelob. Maybe it isn't. I don't know, Radical. That was just my assumption, just based upon the fact that it's a spider that is around that area. And I also, Radical, don't take much into the lore at this point because Rings of Power isn't following the lore. So I just assume if we see a spider, it's logically probably Shelob. That's just kind of how I look at it. But I don't know. We didn't get any confirmation, I don't think. So again, it's left up to interpretation. But yeah. But I'm trying to think of other things that I think were interesting for discussion. I don't know. What's some other things? Anything else you guys want to talk about, Radical or Ashley? You want to talk about? It doesn't even got to be Rings of Power, to be honest. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a live stream just to kind of talk about it because I said I was going to. I didn't do it yesterday because I ended up my local movie theater had Fellowship of the Ring in theaters again, and so I watched it again. It was a great time. Great time. Didn't get to stay to see the whole thing. I left as Boromir died, just because there was a storm in our area, and it was also like the movie didn't end until about 10 at night. So yeah, probably gonna see The Two Towers by probably myself on Wednesday, or I don't know. We'll see. But they're doing like Fellowship, Two Towers, and then Return of the King the next weekend. Khazad-dûm plot. I do like the Khazad-dûm plot. I just think some of the stuff is kind of cringy. Like Deeza singing to the mountain was very cringy to me. I just was not a big fan of that, but yeah. Who does the young Ned Stark actor play in Rings? He plays Elrond. He actually does, and again, I think he does a good job as Elrond. He does give off the vibe of Elrond. I just don't think he looks like Elrond at all, which is the unfortunate part. Like, some of the people don't really look like elves. Like, and it's even more apparent when I watch Fellowship of the Ring and I look at like Rings of Power. It's like in Rings of Power, they just seem like normal guys. Like most of the elves, they just seem like normal dudes. They just seem like humans with just like a wig on or whatever they have on. Whereas like in the Peter Jackson films, they're much more of like an angelic presence, right? The lighting is always like very white lighting because they're angelic looking. They're different. It separates them from humans. That's something Rings of Power really hasn't done that much. Yeah, Ashley. One of my local theaters that's near me has like it's a pretty like it has a lot of different showings usually because it's kind of a bigger theater, so it has usually something that's like an older movie. So for instance, I think over the last like couple months they've been doing like one Harry Potter movie each month. I didn't see any of them. I wish I kind of would have, but I was just really busy. But that was really cool. Yeah. Cannot wait for the sacking of Eregion. Yeah, that should be really cool. I think the actor who plays Aemon would make a great elf. Yeah. He would have made a great Sauron, in my opinion. I think the season will end with Sauron finding Rivendell. Maybe. That's definitely a possibility. Yeah, Radical, that's something I'm really looking forward to is like how they do the Doors of Durin. I think that'd be really cool. Be really cool to see how that's done and all of that. I wonder if we're going to see Durin's Bane in this season because like they hinted it at season 1 and again, a lot of people hate this show just based upon the fact that it doesn't follow the lore at all, and I think that's a legit criticism, right? If I look at House of the Dragon, I also critique House of the Dragon because it doesn't follow the lore at all. I think it's weird because I've kind of accepted, like going into season 2, my expectation was this show has nothing to do with Tolkien's work. This show is just basically its own thing. And I've kind of just accepted that, and I don't know. I think Durin's Bane happens in season 3 personally. Yeah, definitely could be a Radical. Season 2 seems like an improvement for now and is as good as a show. I definitely think season 2 is an improvement as well. I think I've bounced between the idea of it being like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Like, and I rated season 1 like a 2 out of 10. I didn't find much interesting in season 1 at all. The only reason it even got a 2 out of 10 was because of just the production. I thought the production was pretty good in season 1, like the music and the audio and then the actual visual stuff was pretty good. I will say though, I think the music in this season isn't definitely an improvement. Some of the scores they've done have been very, very impressive to me, and so I do think it's been better. Got question. Do you think Willis Tyrell is still crippled? Something about him seems off to me. Like, I wouldn't put it past the Tyrells to be misleading people about him. I wouldn't put it past them either, but that'd be, I think, a weird thing to lie about, Ashley. That's a great point, though, Ashley. Like, why hasn't the heir to Highgarden been married off? Maybe they were looking for the right person? I don't know. That's a really interesting question. Ashley, who do you think he should have been married off to? Like, who do you think would have been a good match for him? Maybe people don't want to marry a cripple. There is a lot of cripple, like, hate in this world. Be interesting. Season 2 is a 7 for me. That's actually interesting, Radical, because if I gave it a 7, I'd have it better than House of the Dragon Season 2. And I don't think that's the case yet, but I do think it's interesting. I don't know. Will you do streams for each episode of Rings? Yeah, I probably will, yeah. I wanted to do them on Friday, but just didn't have the time on Friday. Also, when I fixed my webcam, I probably should have fixed my webcam before I went live. That was kind of my bad. Because this is just zoomed in. It's not actually fit. Because my webcam itself, without me zooming in, can kind of go like all the way to where like the Blackfire sigil is down there. Clearly. But I hope some of the Song of Ice and Fire fans are glad. I was like, I was doing some stuff for my reread, and I was like, okay, screw it. We're just going to go full screen with it. But, I don't know. The Stranger this season is hilarious to me. I just don't like The Stranger, I'll be honest. Ruckus, I don't disagree with you on that. I started playing the Mafia, never played those, Radical. Ashley, that'd be a good match. Definitely tie yourself to the red wines even more. That's definitely a good match. I like that match, Ashley. Okay, so have you guys in chat? For you guys in chat, have you guys watched The Sopranos? Just hit me with a yes or no. Because I just finished the show, and I didn't know what the ending was. I didn't know, anything about the show going into it, really, outside of just like what it was kind of about. Have any of you guys in chat watched? Okay, so I won't say anything, but okay, so I won't talk about the ending then with you guys. If you do want to watch it, it's still a great show, but it ends in a really weird way. But yeah, I'll talk about it probably on the next Game of Thrones stream, like on the main channel. But it would, yeah, one of the weirdest endings to a television show I think I've ever seen. I have not watched Lost Grease. Why did I say my own? I have not, though. I have not. But yeah, Ashley, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. I won't say any more for people that maybe want to watch Sopranos and haven't watched the ending, but it's something. It's something. That's all I'll say. It is something. But yeah, well, that's probably gonna be the stream. I didn't have a ton I wanted to talk about with Rings of Power Season 2 so far. Like, I just want to talk about some of the things I like, some of the things I didn't like. These streams are not going to be as in depth with House of the Dragon streams. Just because I cared about House of the Dragon, or I did a lot more than Rings of Power. Like, for instance, when I watched Rings of Power episode 2, I was literally doing cardio during it. I was just walking. It wasn't like crazy cardio or anything, but so I wasn't like fully locked into watching it. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But thank you guys all for you guys that joined in, said hi and all of that. And I'll see you guys all in the next stream and all that. Bye, guys.